Hello Infiniteers! Today I'm going to put the finishing touches on my Bazarre toy box, and I want to begin by showing you how to populate my city in space with some townspeople. And I want to do that in such a way that it doesn't use up all of the memory or cause a lot of lag, which I'm not sure which is worse. They're both pretty bad. But this is the same technique that I showed you last year in my Mickey's Safari series. This technique allowed me to populate my huge Pride Lands toy box with a lot of animals, and the same technique will work here for populating a city with townspeople. The only difference is the city is a lot smaller than my Pride Lands toy box. Now on my Wii U, I am limited to roughly 16 to 18 AI-controlled characters. And if they're all enemies, 16. But I can go up to 18 if they're mostly townspeople. And I've already used 3. I have this mission giver over here. I've got another mission giver over here. And I've got a Ryan Ferret that I've placed back over here. So that is 3 townspeople that I've placed directly into the toy box. And I explained why I did that directly and not put them in dynamically in previous episodes. But what that means for me is that I've got already, I'm down to about 13 to 15 townspeople that I can put in. I also have 5 initial enemies that are going to spawn in this area over here when I first enter the city from the hangar bay. And that leaves me now with 8 to 10 townspeople. If I divide this area up into multiple overlapping zones, then each zone can only have 4 to 5 townspeople. Now the problem for me is how to divide up the city into zones. If I did not have this bridge in the middle, and I did not have the balconies running around the sides, then this would be pretty easy, because I would be down here in the city, and I could easily divide this up by line of sight, because these buildings block the line of sight pretty well. One idea that I had was to create this little area as a zone, and I could set up this little area over here as a zone, and this area out here as a zone. And the zones are small enough that 4 to 5 people in each zone wouldn't be too bad. The city would look pretty populated. The buildings would help hide the fact that the people were appearing and disappearing, and that would be great. Unless, of course, somebody super jumped over a building. The problem, though, is that I've got this bridge, and I've got these balconies that overlook the area. And this makes it challenging because it's going to seem really weird to look down on an area and not see any townspeople, and then when you drop down, have them suddenly appearing in front of you. That would be kind of jarring. And so I thought about maybe dividing this up into 2 zones, with this whole area on this side being one zone, and this area on the other side of the bridge being another zone. But again, what do I do with the bridge in the middle? Because if I'm standing on this bridge, whoops, and it likes to put me down there. But if I come up on the bridge, and I'm looking over that area, and I'm looking over this area, what do I do here? Creating overlapping zones would be ideal, because I'd want to see townspeople when I look off either side of the zone, either side of the bridge. But that would mean I can only have 4 to 5 people in each zone, and that is not very many people for a huge area like this, or a huge area like that. And even 8 to 10 townspeople per zone isn't very many, but my Wii U can't handle 2 zones with that many townspeople, not when I add in enemies and other things. So ultimately, what I decided to do for my toy box was create one zone. This area over here will be one whole zone. All right. And that way, when you enter the hangar bay, or the city from the hangar bay for the very first time, it looks like the city is populated. And as you move deeper into the city, then you've got enemies starting to jump you, and the player gets a little too busy to notice that the rest of the city doesn't seem very populated. And plus, when you got a gunfight going on in the streets, it would kind of make sense that people would take cover and you wouldn't see them walking around. So ultimately, I decided on just one zone, this one. The other advantage of this is that it allows me to create this zone so that it's big enough so that I can see the townspeople if I'm standing on the balconies, around the edges, or on the bridge in the middle. And I really like that. So to do this, I've set up the creativitoys that I need ahead of time. I've got two little spacer blocks that I've placed in here, and they're lined up with the center of the tunnel down there that comes from the hangars. These again are these blocks out of the blocks drawer, and my locator for this zone is right off the end of that. So if I were to place the square block on the end, the locator would be centered right underneath that. Okay, so that's the placement of the locator. I'll take these little blocks out. We also need a dynamic trigger, a counter, a logic gate, and a replayer. And those are the 4 toys we need to populate our zone. So on the replayer, we'll set the properties on this so the playback interval is 0, because we want to put the townspeople in here as quickly as we can. Our dynamic trigger, we're going to connect up to this locator so that when the player enters the area around this locator, we'll put the enemies in, and when they leave that area, we'll take them out. So on the properties for the dynamic trigger, the target needs to be the locator. And I'm going to set the trigger distance to be 100. That encloses the balconies and the bridge, or encompasses those. And the counter is going to keep track of the players that enter and leave this zone, because if you have 2 players, I don't want to try to replay this replayer each time a player enters this zone. That would corrupt the replayer. And likewise, I need to wait to clear it till both players leave this zone. So on here, we're going to take the visible display to off, and the rest of those are fine. Target counts 2. We only have 2 players. Alright, so let's begin by putting down the townspeople. And I'm going to use the townspeople out of the Disney Infinity 3.0 playset townspeople. We're going to step on our replayer. On my Wii U, I press B to start recording. I have to step off to get back into the editor. And now you want to pick townspeople, because we're on this end of town, that are a little bit more seedy looking. You don't want to be using like these senators and these really well-dressed guys, because that just would look awkward for this area. So we want to get away from the Coruscant people, and we want to come down to here. And it'd be nice to put some droids in here too, so maybe like have a little droid wandering around, because this is Star Wars after all. And I want to put them, since the player is going to be entering this area for the first time down there, we want to put them out of sight so the player doesn't see them spawning. So we'll put a blue droid here, for example. And if we continue scrolling to the right, we can put just about anybody we like in here. Probably not the Hoth people or the Endors. But like Greedo, he'd be a really good choice. Let's put him down here, like in front of this door, like he just come out of the building. No Hoth people. Maybe this guy over here. We'll put him out by this shop. We'll put one over here. Maybe this guy we'll put down in front of this door. So that's what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 so far we've put down. A couple of more maybe. Be nice to have a gal over here. That's 6. Half the fun is figuring out where to place these guys. That would be 7. And I kind of like this little droid. We'll put him over here. It'll be number 8. I'll be conservative and just put 8 down. Alright, so then we can step on our replayer and stop recording. And then A to clear. Alright, so let me go ahead and put them back real quick. So that puts them all in. And if we look at our memory, it's kind of getting up there on my system. So 8 is definitely going to be enough. Probably fewer would have been better, but we're only going to have one enemy type over here. So this is probably going to be okay. If you're on the Wii U also and this becomes a problem, you could cut that back to maybe 5 instead of 8. Let me go ahead and clear again. Okay. So to hook this up, it's pretty easy. It's all driven by this dynamic trigger for the zone. So on this trigger, we're going to do a new logic connection when entered by player any. We want to increment the number of players in the zone. So we're going to come over to our counter and increment by 1. So every time a player enters the zone, this goes up. And likewise, on the dynamic trigger, a new logic connection when exited by player any. We want to decrement the number of players in the zone. On the dynamic trigger, a new logic connection when entered by player any. First time a player enters the zone, we want to do a playback on the replayer. And we're going to come through this logic gate to do it because we only want to do this once. So we'll input into the gate. And then on the logic gate, we'll output and do a playback on the replayer. And by going through the logic gate, we can close the gate now, so it only does this once. So on the replayer, a new logic connection, when playback occurs, we'll come back to the logic gate and close it. So then if a second player enters the zone, it'll try to input into this gate, and it won't be able to get there. Won't be able to get to the replayer because the gate will be closed. So that protects the replayer from being played back twice, which means it won't get corrupted. Alright, now on the counter, we're going to do a new logic connection when 0 is reached. So both players have left the zone. We're going to do two things. We're going to come over to our replayer and clear it. And we're also going to reopen the logic gate. And there we go. It's very easy. Not difficult at all. So the dynamic trigger does work, by the way, with the editor. So when I come out of the editor, we are now in the zone. So you can see the townspeople all appear. And they're in here. And now we can go up on top of the bridge. We can see them walking around. And it makes it look like there's actually people living here. Not as many as I would like. Not as many as what you see in the playsets. But it's something. And it's especially noticeable or needed when you first come out of that hangar bay. You want there to be people walking around. You can see they're down there. If the buildings weren't totally in the way. There they are. And then you jump down and they're here. So that's very good. And then if you leave and go into the editor, now it takes them out because there's no more players left in there. So that's how we populate the townspeople. Again, you see them when you come out of here. Once you start moving into the city and the enemies start attacking you, then you don't notice their absence quite as much. All right, the next thing I'd like to point out is that right now you can go in and out of these windows and there's really not a problem. There's nothing there to prevent the player from doing that. And I don't see that that's necessarily an issue. The only time it might be an issue is if a player decides to try to use a jetpack or something and fly over to patch 4 from in here. But if you want, you can prevent that easily enough by using the scalable barrier block. And you can go ahead and enclose the area here. So what you would do is place this here and then resize it to cover up the openings and run this all the way down. And that would prevent the player from being able to leave this area and also prevent you from flying the Millennium Falcon into this area. What you can do is come into the properties on this. If I can get it selected, there we go. And turn off the collision effect, and then it's pretty much invisible. And you can do that up top as well. So you can put down a scalable barrier block up here too. But again, I don't know that you necessarily need that. Doesn't hurt, but it does take up a little memory. I did not put this in on mine, but I'm just kind of showing you how I would place this if I did it. So there we go. And then you'd create this same block over on the other side. And now the players can't get in, they can't get out. So if we come over here, for example, and now we try to go out of here. We can't leave. So that can be useful. Especially if you have small kids or something playing this, that could be good. Another thing that would be really nice, and I'm not going to do it on mine. I did it for my preview trailer, but I'm not going to do it in mine because I don't have the memory for it. So I'm going to show you how to do it, but I'm not going to actually keep this. If I had more memory, I definitely would do this, but it'd be nice to have some spaceships flying around outside of this thing and make it look like a bustling spaceport. And so what I've got here, I've placed this toy out of the set pieces. This is the Hoth transport. And I've kind of placed it up toward the upper end of those windows over there. So when you're down on the floor, you can see it. And we're going to create a path that will allow us to make this thing move, because I think that would just be really cool. So we're going to set this up over here. About like this. I'll just go ahead and put it right under the base of the ship. And it did not put me in point mode, so let me delete that and do it again. Okay. And I'm just going to create a few points along here like this for it to slow down. Oops. I wanted to keep this straight initially. And just put a few intermediate ones in here so it's not quite so long between points. And if you want, you can have this kind of curve around the station. You can have it try to land if you'd like, but I'll just take this off in this direction. This is a little bit longer path than I normally like to do, but now we'll add in just a few extra points because I want to make it look like the ship is speeding up as it's getting ready to jump into light speed. There we go, and then we'll exit. So I'm going to set the properties on this point. And I would wait definitely and do this step last because you'll notice I now have a lot of lag in the toy box. So we're going to set that to 300. We're going to set this one to 200. And the rest of these we'll leave set at 100. And then we're going to do the same thing over on the other end. Takes a while to get over here. You could also just have that ship fly straight, and then instead of going around the station, and then have it take off into hyperspace off that direction. That would be a shorter path, but all right, so on here, properties for the path, we're going to leave speed set at 100 because this is for the entire path. Auto start objects when connected, we'll leave that on. Path point options, I'm going to set this to be 300. And then over here, we'll set this one to be, let's make this 250. We'll have it kind of slow down a little bit more gradually. You want to get this up to where the player can actually see it. Properties. $200. And actually, let's do it this way. I think it'll look better if we make this 150 and the previous one 200. Because we want it to slow down faster towards the start of the path. So I'll set that to be 200. Okay, and then we just connect our ship. And the default properties on this are going to be fine, so it's going to loop. It's going to jump back to the beginning of this path after it reaches the end. Although you probably should orient along the path. So there it comes. And now if we come in over here, we have a ship that's going along. And that's another little finishing touch that kind of brings the city to life. So you've got people over here in the toy box. You've got a ship moving outside of the windows. And you could add in one more. I probably would put more than 2 in here. 2 is probably going to be sufficient. Maybe have one coming from that direction, so they're flying in different directions or coming to the city from different directions. But yeah, then you can watch that kind of fly along. And there you go. Whoa. I wanted to get over here where I could see the townspeople and the... There you go, townspeople and the ship. That just makes this look a lot better. Because now it looks like a bustling spaceport. And I like that. And at this point, you can go ahead and move all of the creativitoys from the floor here and so on into the hidden area back up here. And you probably want to do this before you create that path, because you'll notice all the lag. But you can hide all those creativitoys back in here and get them out of the way. And with that, my Bazarre toy box is done. Next time, we'll add the toy box door and begin working on the second toy box in this adventure, where you battle the Imperial Armada. Thank you for watching. Let me remind you that I've got a logic diagram on my blog to help you connect the creativitoys that I used today, if you need it. The link is in the video description. Have a great day.